Great. Let's. Cool. Okay. So again, we're just gonna continue where we left off last time, and again just look at more examples and see what we can add to questions. So again, if you guys have any questions that you are working through or want me to look at in a session, please feel free to send the questions to the WhatsApp group. I will include it in one of our or in our session on Saturday. But we can also chat about it on the WhatsApp group as well. Okay, so yeah, so please, if there is any other questions, please share. Okay, so yeah, if there is any questions that you have, please send it on the group, then we can look at it, so that we make sure that we cover all examples that you might have. Okay, so let's go through some of the questions that I've copied and taken into consideration for tonight's session. So the first one we're looking at is a net present value question. So here we look at net present value of Beautiful People Shop, and it seems very similar to a question we handled nearly 2 or 3 weeks ago, where they tell you the net present value, they tell you what the profitability index is, and they ask you to work out the initial payment. Okay, so let's first look at what the net present value formula is. So from a profitability index, you will look at the profitability index is equal to net present value plus your you take your profitability index, that is equal to your net present value plus your original investment, and you divide that by your original investment. So or your initial or original investment. So that is what we are after. So what we will do in this instance is I would just say, okay, let my initial investment be equal to X. We know what our profitability index is. That is equal to 1,034. We know what our net present value is. That is 14,983. So if we then have our original, sorry, let me just resize this again. So then we are in a sense able to work out what x will be. So let's multiply out. So 1,034 times x, because we multiply both sides on x, is equal to 14,983 plus x. So I will subtract on both sides with x. So I get that 0,034 x is equal to 14,983. Oh, but wait a minute. Why does this? Okay, so then x is equal to 14,983 divided by 0,034. And that is equal to 440,676. Okay, so let me just rewrite this component and then I will answer the question. So from this point, we basically will go and say x is equal to 14,983 divided by 0,034. And then we get x is equal to 440,676. I just want to, let's just see, does it make sense? So we've got our net present value, 4,983, plus x, because that is original layout. Now it seems correct. So, oh, okay. So when you take that over to that side, the 1,034x minus 1x will give you the 0,034. Okay, so that is where that one disappeared to, is when I took it to the left-hand side. So it would have been 1,034 x minus 1x would have given you the 0,034. Okay, I hate it when it is like this and there is not an answer for this. Okay, cool. Okay, awesome. Um, yeah, I think they've, again, like I said last time, moved away from nearly having these none of the above questions and things like that, because it really doesn't make sense to ask a question like this and you don't nearly get even close to the answer. So it does worry me, some of these old questions that still have none of the above, because yeah, there's nothing in this question that is close um, to what we are actually looking for. So um, yeah, it, it always um, worries me. This, I think, let me quickly check. This is from chapter 5, I think. Let me quickly look at, I think it's chapter 5. So let me just quickly check my study guide. Um, okay, so that is at least at least good that there was at least mention um, about some of the previous exam papers and things like that. So at least um, okay, so at least that is good that the lecturer also mentioned. So that it mean that the none of the above is not part of any questions anymore, which is good. Um, no, this is. Let me quickly. It's not. It's not the sinking funds. It is. Can I not see it now? Let me quickly open the study guide. Um, let me quickly see where the study guide is. Let me quickly just open that for you guys. I don't think it is. It is for amortization. Let me. Okay, so it's not that. So sorry. 6, evaluation of cash flows. Evaluation of cash flows, and then it is around page 93. So let's quickly go to 93. It's Let me quickly just okay, so the bond questions I will do on Saturday for you guys. I've actually got a few bond questions that, okay, here's the profitability index. So on page 95 on the study guide is the work around the profitability index for net present values. Okay, so page 95. So that you guys have that. Okay, but all the bond questions, I will cover that in Saturday's session. So please, we will on Saturday cover the bonds and those kind of things. I think we nearly for Saturday we will have a big focus on the bonds and those things, but we sort that for you out as well. Yes, question.
Jean, just quickly, uh, the 1x that you got, 1034x equals
Yes.
1493 plus 1x. Where does that 1 come from?
Okay, so it's basically in front of the x, there's always a 1. So if you see that x on its own, it's to make it sometimes simpler, I will just add the 1 so that you can see there is a 1.
Oh,
So
okay. Like an
so it's
invisible
just
1.
exactly.
Ah, okay. All
Exactly.
right. Perfect.
Yeah,
Got it.
cool. Okay, so yeah, so again, when you look at this final answer, not even close to any of the options. So again, I hope again, like you guys said, at least the lecturer also mentioned it, that there is definitely not these weird things from pre-COVID that um, as this none of the above. Because yeah, again, if you work out the whole thing and then suddenly you get none of the above, it really is not a, a great one. Okay, so let me gonna just move this to my other screen. So if there is again a formula or something that we need to show, we can quickly get into that. So let's then go to um, the part, the question 14 and 15. And again, I'm also hoping for for you guys, and I don't know if there was any mention of that by the lecturer also, um, that they're doing away with these types of questions where you nearly have a question following onto a question. Because again, pre 2020, what was the issue sometimes is if you get the one wrong, um, and let's be honest, if you get the first one wrong, then the chances of you getting the second one right is very slim. Um, and again, because when it was handed as it was still multi-choice way back, but you were writing some of the answers, so they could still check how you worked out the problems. Now they don't. They only know that you selected a number. So I hope again, some of these things are not um, part of your exam where they follow one question from another. Okay, so let's look at this question. So here they say Charlene intends to open a hairdressing salon, and borrows the money from Aunt Amor. Amor, Charlene feels that she will only be able to start repaying her debt after 5 years. Okay, so she only thinks that she will be able to repay it after 5 years. So let's just, for now, I'm just making a type of of timeline. Um, Charlene will then pay Aunt Amor 35,000 every 6 months for 4 years. Okay, so then she will basically pay like a type of annuity for 4 years, but every 6 months for 4 years, she will then pay that 35,000. Okay. Money is worth 17.9% per year, compounded semi-annually. So let's just add that to what we know. And semi-annually, they could have rather just said 2 times per year. Okay, so again, some, as I always call it, higher grade English. So they could have just made it very simple and just said 2 times a year, or they could have said every 6 months. Okay, this things, okay, so yeah, at least they said every 6 months, but with semi annually, they could have done the same, because now suddenly you see semi annual, you see every 6 months, and again, why is the wording different? They could have just said, okay, every 6 months, the compounding rate is. Okay, so let's see what is the first question that they're asking us from this set of information. So they ask us the present value of Charlene's debt at the time she starts paying back will equal. Okay, so this nearly is to say at that period after 5 years, what will a debt be? So um, she's basically making payments of 35,000. She is making that payments with the interest rate of 17.9%. She is doing it for 2 times a year or every 6 months. She's making that 35 payments for 4 years. So in total, it is 8 periods. Okay, and then we want to know at the beginning of when just before she starts making the payments, how much does she owe? So we want to find out the present value of all of those payments. Okay, so we don't worry yet what the amount is that we might need to pay now or the amount that we need to borrow now. We nearly want to make sure that amount that we got there, what is the present value of that? Okay, so we want to find out what is that present value. So on the calculator, I see I still got begin on my calculator from last time. So um, we've got a 35,000 PMT, got 17.9 interest. We got 2 times per year. We've got it for 4 years, so it is 8 periods. And then if we look at the present value, and I think that is spot on, got the value of 194,079,19. Okay, so that is option 2. So perfect, spot on with that one. So that is basically what the present value is before she starts making the payments. Okay, so then it nearly feels an automatic question is, okay, so that is in 5 years' time when she starts making the payments. So what is the actual amount today, or when she intends to borrow the money? What is that actual amount that she wants to borrow? Okay, so that means that we basically still needs to, where we've got now this value of 194, and I'm just going to write 194. We now need to work it back to what are we going to pay exactly at the moment, or what is she going to pay at the moment that she takes out the loan. So let's see what we need to do. So again, we need to work out the present value. Now we've actually got a future value. So that was for 194. So that's why I say if we now made a mistake in question 14, you would automatically have question 15 wrong because you can't get to the right answer if it was any of the other options, which again is, I hope it does not appear into these exams like it was previously. Okay, so then we still got the same interest rate. So our interest rate still stays 17.9. We still have that interest is compounded semi-annually. So there's nothing in the question that said now suddenly there's a new interest rate or anything changed. So interest rate still 2 times per year. The only difference now is it's 5 years. So n is 5, so that our total periods now is 5 times 2, which is 10. Okay, so that's the only difference nearly that now comes in, is that instead of the 4 years, it is now 5 years. So that means that it is 10 periods. We've got the future value of 194,079.19. And then my present value that I get, let me just, I've not done something wrong. The present value that I get is 82,358.16. Okay, again, perfect. That is exactly the same I got, and that is option 1. So yeah, so again, what they might do for this year is they will not put it as two separate. So they might have added that you needed to work out that present value, then use it and change it to future, and then work it back, but nearly have it as one question. Because again, it does not make sense that you get a question like this, and then as you nearly need to make sure that one question is correct for the other one to be correct as well. Okay, so at least a few things have changed since it was paper based. So none of the above, and this that nearly follows up from one another. Okay, so again, another question that we have like that, let's just quickly and make it bigger. So you could see this was quite quite a hit in previous years, that one question follows from another. So again, let's look at what the question is, and then let's see what we need to work out. So 3 years ago, Daniel borrowed 10,000 from Sarah on condition that he would pay her back in 6 years' time. Interest is calculated at 14.75% per year, compounded quarterly. 6 months ago, he also borrowed 17,500 from her at an interest rate of 10.5% per year, compounded monthly. This loan will be paid back 3 years from now. And then the total amount that Daniel will owe Sarah 3 years from now is. Okay, so let's just again look at this question, and I think again that the timeline for this one is quite important. So let's just quickly read again. 3 years ago. So let's say that is now 3 years ago. Let's say this is now. That was 3 years ago. Daniel borrowed 10,000. On condition that he would pay it back in 6 years. So basically 3 years from now, because 3 plus 3 gives you a 6. So that is the one that we will need to work out. Interest was calculated at 14.75%, compounded quarterly, so 4 times per year. That is for 6 years, so that was nearly for 24 periods. I'm just thinking of nearly what the things are for that first one. So we would nearly have a present value. We would have the interest rate. It's a quarterly interest rate. It's for 6 years. So we're sitting with 24 periods. So that would be that first component. So let's just let's isolate that. Let's work out that first component. So we've got the 10,000 as a present value. We've got the 14.75 interest. We've got now 4 times per year. The previous question was twice a year for 6 years, which gives us 24 periods. And then if I look for the future value, what I get for that 10,000 is that it is 23,000 846,996. So let's round it off to 83,847. Okay, so that is for that first component, the 3 years ago, and we will pay it off over 6 years. So that is that first component. Then they say, well, again, we're sitting at now 6 months ago. So there is 6 months ago. So I just say 6 over 12. She also borrowed, well, he also borrowed 17,500. So he had a present value of 17,500 that he borrowed now against a new interest rate of 10.5%. Also a new payments or periods per year. So now it's not quarterly anymore. It is monthly. And again, we'll pay it off at the same time as the other one, so 3 years from now. So in total, because it was 6 months ago, 6 months plus 3 is 3.5 years. So if we look at how many periods, that would be 3.5 times 12 is 42 periods. Okay, so now again, present value of 17,500. We've got an interest rate of 10.5% this time. We've got, instead of quarterly, now we've got 12 or monthly periods. We've got it for 3.5 years. So it will be 42 periods. And then the future value that I get from nearly the green component is 25,231.73. Okay, interesting that not one of them are as answers here. I would have thought they might have given me the 23 as an option and the 25 as an option. So if you now add those two together, you will get a final answer of 49,078.73. Okay, so you will get that final answer. So again, the other options might be because it might be that you used the interest rate for the second option as the same. So it might have that you used 14.75 and not the 10.5. You might have used 4 times per year instead of a 12 to get you one of the others. So yeah, so originally I thought that there would be the two amounts separately listed, but it now seems more than the others you probably could have gotten if you have not changed the period or the number of years or the interest rate. You probably would have gotten one of the other options. Okay, so this is one where you needed to nearly look at and why I wanted to show this is also very important that how to I always like to draw the 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 timeline. So yeah, so this question is basically a compound interest question. This is purely a compound interest question, where for this one is you're getting 2 periods that you're borrowing money, and it is purely a compound interest question. The only thing that makes this a bit more difficult is that you're sitting with two components that you need to work with, instead of having just one question or one piece of data that you're working with. Here you have two values with changing interest, with changing payments per year, with changing times per year. So I think that is nearly what they wanted to test in question 18. Okay, so that was question 18. So I'm just keeping for now the information. We might take away some of it as we look at question 19. So then basically what they say is Daniel asked Sarah if he can now reschedule his debt. So again, we need to know question 18, the answer to to know what to do in question 19. So again, not great in the previous ways where if you had question 18 wrong, you would have gotten question 19 wrong as well. So let's just, so we basically going to just use this 49, that is for just the piece that we're going to use, because now everything going to change. So Daniel asked Sarah if he can reschedule his date. And in this reschedule, basically what he is saying is, so let's reschedule it, paying 18,000 now. So wants to pay 18,000 now. And the rest 2 years from now. So 2 years from now, he wants to pay the rest. Sarah agrees to this on condition that the interest rate for the new agreement starting now changes to 14.4% per year. Oh, there's a shower now falling on this side. Per year compounded half yearly. So now again, in the same questionnaire, they had 6 months semi-annually and now half a year as well. And it's all the same thing. So 13% per year compounded half yearly means it is 2 times a year. Okay, and that again, I hope they stopped with, they could use the same meaning in all the questions, but basically in the same question or paper, they actually put it 3 different ways. So what is the amount that Daniel must pay Sarah 2 years from now? Okay, so they basically want to find out what is that amount that Sarah will pay 2 years from now. Okay, so let's quickly again look at Daniel or Sarah if he can reschedule his debt, paying 18,000 now and the rest 2 years from now. Sarah agrees on this condition that the interest rate from a new arrangement starting now changes to 13. Oh, okay, so we still need to use the previous information. Let me just quickly check this. Okay, so this again a bit confusing because I would have just used that amount to say, okay, I will use the 49,078.73, subtract 18, and then nearly work out the new. Let me just, I just want to work out something. I'm not gonna say what I'm doing, so that I'm just checking if I get an answer. Else I will just check if we need to rework it. Hmm. So I wanted to say, okay, so what they want us to do is nearly change. So not looking at what we're paying the 49 as I now did there. That is also, let's just take that. Sorry. Okay, so it's going to be easier to just delete and then duplicate that slide again. Okay, so what they actually want us, they're not worried anymore about that 49,000 that is paid in 3 years' time. They want us now to say, so I'm still here at now. Instead of that 49,000 that I did, I nearly want to say that I will pay at this stage for 18,000. Then what I need to find out is this 10,000. If I now look at that 10,000 over that period with this 14.75 instead of the 3 years, the 6 years, sorry, that we had, I nearly want to find out what is that value now. So remember, I worked out that value over 6 years in my previous question. So there we worked that 10,000 out over 6 years. So I actually want to find out how much is that 10,000 at the point of now. So the 10,000 will be, and let's take that away as well. So let's first work out, I want to work out what is that 10,000 now. So 10,000 still at the 14.75%. So now we still need to jump between the two questions, which again is not great, because we still need to look at the original 14.75. That was still compounded quarterly. So the only thing that changes to what we did in question 18 is now, instead of working it out for 24 months, we're working it out for 12 months. So that will be that 3 years, which is now. Okay, so still the 10,000 negative present value, 14.75% interest, 4 times a year for 3 years. It's for 3 years, that's 12 periods. And then if I work out what my future value is, that is 15,442.47. Okay, so that is, sorry, where we changed this 10,000, where we in question 18 worked it out for that whole 6 years period. We now only worked it out for the 3 years period. Okay, because we want to find out what everything is valued at the moment. Okay, so the important thing for us in this question is to find out this value of now. Okay, so the first one was that 10,000 that we worked out the value of now. Then the other one was where we looked at the 17,500. And remember, yes, we worked it out in the previous question for 3.5 years. So now we only want to work it out until now. So the now is again 17,500 present value at the 10.5 interest. Again, it was 12 times per year, but it was only for 6 months to get to now. It was only 0.5 years. So that is only 6 periods. And then if we get that future value, we can get to, and we add those two, we get to a value of now. Okay, so let's see what that future value. So they basically, we needed to repeat what we did in question 18. We just now needed to repeat it basically to get all of that instead of what it is worth in 3 years' time to work out what it is valued now. So very repetitive nearly, and that is where it is very easy to make a mistake. Because my first thought was to use that 49 that was in 3 years and work that backwards. But again, that would not have been the right one because we actually work with two different periods. So this one is 17,500 present value, 10.5 interest rate, 12 times a year, but for only half a year. So that's for 6 periods. And then the future value that I am getting from this one is 18,439.08. Okay, so my value at point now is those two added together. So that is 18,439.08 plus 15,442.47. Okay, which is 33,881.55. And there is the answer for that. Okay, but we are not done yet. So we've now worked out what those two amounts is at point now. So that is only at point now. Then what happens is, okay, from that point now, we are actually saying, well, she is making an 80,000 or 18,000. Daniel is paying 18,000. And then what is happening at that stage is after that 18,000 is subtracted, so that is 15,881.55. That amount now we need to pay interest on that, which is paid at 13.4% per year, compounded twice a year for 2 years. So that's for 4 periods. So that was your present value. At this stage, we now need to find out what is our future value. Okay, so really a lot of work going into this question. So 15,881 rand 55 cents is your present value, but you're now working with a new interest of 13.4% at 2 times a year, because they said it is now half yearly for 2 years. So that is 4 periods. And now if I get my future value, it is 20,584 rand and 99 cents. Sure. Okay, so that is really a lot of work. Where I originally just wanted to use the 49 and nearly work backwards. What you need to do in this instance is nearly look at that information that they gave us about the 10,000 and the 17,500. And instead of working out what the future value will be in 3 years' time from now, we need to work out what is that value currently. So the 3 years ago that we took out the one, the 6 months ago that we took out the one, we needed to make it everything what is the current value. And then they said to us, okay, from that current value or that current that we need to pay back, we are making nearly an immediately payment of 18,000 that we can take off. And then, yes, it's fine that Daniel does that, but Sarah then wants to nearly make changes to the loan, how it's going to be paid back, and she wants to make that changes that the interest rate is changed, the times per year is changed, so that the payment that's due in 2 years from now, what is that? Okay, so really, again, if we look at this one, quite a lot of work that one needs to do with it. So in this instance, it didn't matter if question 18 was actually wrong, because you didn't use any any information from question 18. Again, it I would have thought, looking at the previous questions, that you needed to use some of the information of question 18, and I think that's why in some of the previous years it was very confusing when you got a question that's following up from a different question. Okay, so let's look at another set of questions. So hopefully this is not, it does not seem that it is following onto one another. So let's, we've covered some of the standard deviation questions last time. So let's look at this, just this question 20. So what they're asking us is the accumulated amount rounded to the nearest 1,000 rand of semi-annual payments of 5,500 for 10 years into account earning 8.9% interest per year compounded monthly. Okay, so now very important nearly that what we need to do with question 20 is, before we can just now put in the amount that we want to work out, is that you need to first change the interest. So currently it is 8.9% interest per year compounded monthly, but look at the semi-annual payments. So that means that we are working, that we first need to convert the monthly interest into semi-annual component. So this is nearly a combination of, what was it, question or not question, chapter 3, I think, where we changed interest rates from monthly to semi-annually or monthly to quarterly. So that was nearly in chapter 3 that we did that. So the formula that is important in this instance is that we need to look at the interest rate divided by the period, and then what we will do is okay, so let's just, sorry, there was I will just take that out. That should not be there. Okay, so it's 1 plus jm over m to the power. So let's just rewrite this component so that it at least looks that it to the power of m over n minus 1. Okay, so that is how the formula will look like. So n is looking at the semi-annual, compounded monthly is the m. So we've got 1 plus jm, so that is our monthly interest rate of 0,089 divided by M, which is for 12. And that we will take to the power of, now in this instance, 12 divided by 2. So let's just write that. When I work it out, I will just say to the power of 6, because again, my calculator does not always allow me to use fractions. So let me quickly, just as I will, what my steps is. So 0.089 divided by 12 is 0.0074 plus 1 is 1.0074. So that to the power of 6 will give me 1.0453. If I minus that by 1, I get 0.04533. Multiply by 2, I will get that my interest rate is 0.9067. So if I multiply that by 100 to get to a percentage, I will get that my interest rate now is 0.90667. Okay, so that will be the interest rate that I will be using is 9.0667 is my interest rate. My PMT is equal to the minus 5,500. Then remember, it is now, we're looking at it from a point of view that it is semi-annually. So it is 2 times per year for, I think, where was it? I missed it again because I said it in numbers, in words. 10, 10 times or 10 years. So 2 times a year for 10 years is 20 periods. And they want us to work out what is the accumulated amount. So they want us to work out what is the future value of that. So when I put all of that in, I get 173,146.40. Okay, what do they say? Round it to nearest thousand. So 173. Okay, so option 5. That is very close. So I wonder if we would have set 8.9. So I just want to check if we set 8.9 as our interest. Then my answer would have been 171,642, and if I rounded it off, it would have been. So if we used just for 8.9%, that would have been the answer that we would have gotten to. Okay, so first we need to change that 8.9% compounded monthly into a semi-annual payment. Then from that semi-annual payment, we will need to basically use that semi-annual interest, which is 9.0667, with the PMT that is minus 5,500, twice a year because it is semi-annual for 10 years, which gives us the 20,000, the 20 years, sorry. And then the future value would have been 173,146. Okay, so very important to change that interest rate. Also, what is interesting is that if you have worked out the present value, so again, it might have been that the lecturer mentioned that there is in your questions state that some students, there's a few questions around the one question nearly, so everybody doesn't get the same question always. So if we needed to work out with this information the present value, we would have been able to select option one. So it might be that this information, to some students, it's asked to work out the future value. To some students, it is asked to work out the present value. So I think just again, when you go through this again, test some other possibilities as well. So very easily in question 20 to ask what is the present value. It's more difficult to ask it in a question like question 18 and 19 now suddenly to work out, because we actually have all the present values. But in a question like question 20, one could have been able to ask you what was the present value as well. Okay, so let's look at the next question, because the next question again is something that you guys must definitely practice as well, because especially on how to use your calculator. Um, Again, I like to use Excel. I don't know, did the lecturer say anything about you being able to use Excel? Um, and if not, and I don't think you guys have another session with the lecturer unless. Okay, awesome. So but- okay, that's awesome. That you are allowed to use Excel. So I will again, this question I will do on Excel, and I will send it to the WhatsApp group as well, so that you can then just use my Excel, and when you need to substitute some of the things, you can just substitute the numbers. Um, because again, how the the exam is run, the exam or the webcam only focuses on you and not on some of the applications you have open. So you are allowed to have Excel open. So let's let's open Excel, and again, I think let me just show you guys how I would have done it in Excel. You are more than welcome to also use your calculators, because most of your calculators can do it. I'm just, again, my my calculator skills for this one is not as good as my Excel skills. So I would just rather use Excel for this. Okay, so the first one is the points 2 and 45. 3 and 250, 4 and 250, 5 and 175, 6 and 125. Because what I will also, so we're just not going to work out the slope and those kind of things. We are also going to work out the R so that you can get the R correlation as well. And I'm also just going to do the R square for you guys so that if there is a question of the correlation of determination, that you have that as well. Okay, so let's look at firstly the slope. Again, wait, the important thing with Excel when you guys might be doing it and using the formulas, Excel want you to put in the Y values first, which is different from your financial calculator, because financial calculator is always X, Y, or you put in the X's first and then the Y. But Excel wants you to first put the Y values and then the X values. And that is important because now suddenly you see the slope is 8.5. If we changed that around, first putting X and then Y, we would have gotten the intercept of 8.5. So just be very careful when you're using Excel that the formula you put in the data the right order, because else you would get a different answer. So let's do it that I said now. Um, let So I'm gonna switch it around now, but I can just show you the impact of the answer. So suddenly you see, because I swapped it around, we intercept 3,528. Okay, so just because I used it the wrong way around, you actually got one of the answers. So again, it's one of those where they make nearly sure that if you have put it into your calculator incorrectly or into Excel incorrectly, that there is the answer. So let's just again make sure intercept Y's first, X's second. So we get the 1,35. So intercept 1,35. The slope is 8,5. So our answer for this would have been option 3, which is the y is equal to 8.5x plus 135. But let's just quickly work out as well for you what is the correlation. So it's important that we just add this for you guys as well. Correlation does not matter if we put in the x's first and the y second. So it's only for the regression line. Correlation, basically, what is important about the correlation is that it correlates the two values with one another. So it doesn't really matter for correlation if it looks at the y first and the x's second or the other way around, because it's always just referencing the two with a 45. It does not worry if the one is the x and the other one is the y. Okay, so let me show you that just with, let's do it the other way around so that you can just see. So let's say we followed the same principle as with how we would have done with a straight line, and you can see it's the same. It's the same answer. So it didn't matter for correlation if we put x first and y second, or the other way around, because every time it's just looking at the 2 versus the 45, the 3 versus the 250. So if it is the other way around, does not make a difference. Then the other thing wanted to show you, so if your slope is positive, your correlation is positive. Okay, so if the slope was negative, your correlation will also be negative. So that sign and this sign will be the same. So just be, when you work it out on your calculator or on Excel, and they might give you a follow-up question to this and say, well, the correlation is, and one of them is negative, then nearly you can already eliminate the negative if there was a question, because you know that because your slope is positive, your correlation needs to be positive as well. Okay, and then the last one is just, if you needed to work out your R square or your determination, there is not a function for that. So what we need to do is to say it is basically R times R, or R to the power of 2. That, sure. Okay, so that would have been your determination. It is, let me quickly think if there is a way to do this manually. There is. It is. Let's quickly go to the study guide. I think there is, but I would not recommend it, because it is really a long way to a long. So let me quickly show you. So let's quickly get to the regression line. So if we needed to work that out with the data, okay, so this is the formula if you want to work out the correlation. So not even just the straight line. So if you wanted to work out the correlation, let me quickly just see where's the free text one. Okay, it seems like I can't get to the free text. So this would have been the formula for correlation. So you needed to work out in this instance, what is that mean? So what's that average? What is that average? Then you would have needed to work out the sum of all the x's, the sum of all the y's. Then you would have needed to work out the x times x of each one and add it together. The same with the y. So to do a question like this manually is really difficult. And yeah, I would nearly not because here you can see what they've done with so example 8.8 in your study guide is a good one just to look at how they did it, giving the information, and you needed to work out your correlation. Okay, so if you then needed to work out the straight line, again, it is, let's quickly check where is that component. I think that is more towards, okay, so if you needed to work out your straight line with the information, you, I just, sorry for this, I just want to check where that is, because again, it is, okay, so for the straight line, you would have needed to again work out the x times the y. So again, in this instance, the x times y, added all of them together, then the sum of all the x's, the sum of all the y's, needed to subtract that with the extra steps. So that is just to work out the b, so the slope, and to work out the intercept, it would have been the sum of all the y's, and then you needed to have the slope correct with the sum of all the x's. So again, it is possible, but a lot of work that goes into that, how to work it out manually. So nearly pages, I think if you look at page 144, so 144 and then example, what was it? Example 8.8. So if you look at example 8.8 and the piece of work for example 8.8, so you can look at example 8.8 and then use that to work out correlation, and use that nearly to work out the straight line as well. But yeah, I would not recommend that one does this, because again, the time you spend on this now, if you wanted to work out that manually versus the time you spent on another question that might be shorter. So just take that into account nearly, because again, it's different if there is the set of data and just nearly a second or third question on this one set of data. But it might also be in your exam that the one question is on this set of data to work out the regression line, and then suddenly you get another set of data to work out the correlation. Then you need to go through that whole process again. So nearly, if possible, try to avoid it, unless and please share with me if you have access to your, not the mock exam, the assignment before the mock exam, because this would have been asked in that assignment. So if I can just see how they ask these questions on the nearly the stats component with a regression. If somebody can just maybe share that last assignment before the mock exam. If, yeah, then it might be good for me just to see how they also did this, and then on Saturday I can show you one or two things around this again, if there is another way that we can look at it. Okay, guys, so that is it for this session. So for Saturday, I will definitely include some of those bond questions. And then please, on the WhatsApp group, any other questions that we need to cover for Saturday will be great. Then just let me know what other questions there are, so that we can just make sure, and then at least you guys have a session on, I think on Monday still, with a lecturer as well, that you can at least ask the lecturer your last questions around these things as well. Okay, so that is it for tonight, everyone. Stay warm, and then we'll check in again on Saturday at the same time as last Saturday. So 11:30 will be our check-in